Welcome to Suri Cheating Story, where we share true stories of betrayal in love. Our channel brings heartfelt, real-life experiences from those who have endured the pain of infidelity. Whether you're facing challenges in your own relationship or seeking to better understand the complexities of love and trust, Suri Cheating Story is the place for you. Subscribe now to explore the emotional depths in the path to healing with us. I never imagined I'd be surprised in my own home, especially not by my stepmother, Linda. The move back to live with my dad and his new wife in Chicago was supposed to be temporary, just a pause while I got on my feet. I had just graduated from Northwestern University, hoping to enter the world of finance, but with rent prices astronomical, staying with my dad seemed like the smartest choice. I wasn't around much when he remarried, so I didn't know Linda very well. She was different from what I expected. A woman in her mid-50s, vibrant, charismatic, and always carrying a warm atmosphere. She's the type of person who makes you feel like you've known her for a long time. In fact, sometimes we are closer than I am with my dad. That Tuesday morning was like any other morning, except that afternoon I had a job interview, an interview I had been dreaming about for years. My stomach turned as I stood in the bathroom, steam fogging the mirror as I rehearsed the answer in my head. I need to be sharp and confident. This is my shot. A gentle knock on the door pulled me out of my thoughts. "James?" Linda's voice was gentle but clear. "Are you in there?" "Yeah, I'm preparing for the interview," I called back, keeping my tone neutral. There was a short pause. "I'm so sorry to bother you, but I need to get something from the cupboard. Do you mind?" "No problem. Come in." The door opened slightly and Linda walked in. She wore a blue silk robe, her long hair tied in a loose bun. I thought she was going to grab whatever she needed and leave, but when she reached into the closet, I noticed something. Her robe wasn't tied tightly. The fabric had loosened, sliding just enough to reveal the soft curve of her shoulders and collarbone. My breath hitched, and I quickly looked away, feeling heat hit my face. "Is everything okay?" I asked, trying to act normal. Linda turned and met my eyes with a small, knowing smile. "I'm fine. Just took some aspirin." She held up the bottle before tilting her head slightly. "Worry about your interview?" "A little," I admitted. I hadn't looked at her. Her expression softened. "You'll do great, James. Just be yourself. They'll see how great you are." I nodded, appreciating the encouragement. But just as she was about to leave, disaster struck. The buttons of her robe undid completely, and in one smooth motion, the silk slipped from her shoulders and fell to the floor. Everything stopped. For a moment, neither of us moved. Linda's eyes widened in shock, her body frozen in place. My mind was dizzy, unable to process what had just happened. Then suddenly, she gasped, quickly pulled her cloak back to cover herself, her face turning red. "Oh my God, James," she stammered. I didn't mean..." I turned around so quickly that I almost knocked over my razor. "It's okay." My voice came out strained, too loud. "It was just an accident." She was fiddling with the belt, tying it so quickly that her hands were shaking. "Please don't tell your father. He will be very sad." My heart is still pounding. "Of course, it's our secret." Linda stormed out of my room, leaving behind the faint scent of lavender lotion and an eerie silence. I leaned against the sink, clutching the rim, trying to slow my breathing. My thoughts raced back to the way she looked at me, the sheer panic, the moment frozen in time. For the rest of the day, I couldn't concentrate. My interview seemed like a blur. My answers were automated. My mind kept drifting back to that morning. Linda's eyes flashed with something more than shame, something I can't name. That night I avoided her. I didn't know what to say, and the atmosphere in the house became heavier and heavier. Every look, every pass of her in the kitchen made my pulse skyrocket. She acted normal, but I could feel it, the tension, the unspeakable weight of what happened. I went to bed early, thinking that sleep would erase it from my mind. But as I lay there, looking at the ceiling, it kept playing over and over again. The look on her face, the way my stomach tightens when I see her. I know I shouldn't think about that. She's my stepmother, for God's sake. But that doesn't stop my thoughts from wandering to places they shouldn't. The next morning I staggered into the kitchen, still dazed, and that's when I saw it. A small folded piece of paper on the table with my name on it. "James, we need to talk." I stared at the words, my fingers tightening around the paper. My heart was beating so loudly that I could hear it in my ears. What does she want to talk about? Has she told my dad yet? Does she want to pretend like it never happened? Or is it something else entirely? I took a deep breath, my hands shaking as I crumpled the paper in my palm. One thing is clear. My life is about to get a lot more complicated. I spent the morning trying to shake off my anxiety. Every time I heard movement from Linda's room, my stomach tightened. I couldn't predict what she wanted to say, but I knew I had to face it. When I finally walked into the living room, she was there, sitting on the couch holding a cup of coffee. Her eyes met mine, and for a moment, neither of us said anything. "James, sit down," she said finally, her voice gentle but firm. I obeyed, feeling like a child called in for a serious talk. My pulse pounded in my ears. "About yesterday." She hesitated, exhaling slowly. "That was unexpected, and I wanted to make sure we were okay." I nodded, but something in her expression told me there was more she wasn't saying. "It was just an accident. We don't need to make a big deal out of it." She studied me for a long moment, as if searching for something in my face. "Are you sure? Because I feel like something has changed." Her words made me shiver. She's not just talking about the moment in the bathroom. She was talking about the way we avoided each other, the way we looked at each other for too long, the unspoken tension that had settled between us. And the worst part is, she was right. I swallowed hard, not knowing how to respond. I don't know. Maybe I'm just overthinking it." Linda sighed, placing the coffee on the table. "Maybe, or maybe we need to talk about it." "Honestly," I leaned back, rubbing the back of my neck. "What do you want me to say? That it wasn't awkward?" "'Cause it was, but it was just one of those things, you know? A mistake." She nodded slowly, her eyes falling to her hands. "Yes, a mistake." But something about the way she said it made my stomach turn. There was hesitation in her voice, something unspeakable behind those words. The silence stretched between us, thick and heavy. Then after what seemed like forever, she let out a small laugh, though it didn't reach her eyes. "I guess I just wanted to clear the air. Let's make sure there's nothing weird between us." I was forced to giggle. "Yeah, nothing strange. But we both know it's a lie." The conversation should have ended there, but neither of us moved. We sat in silence, pretending not to think about what happened. Pretend the energy between us hasn't changed. Finally, Linda stood up. "I should start dinner. Your dad will be home soon." I nodded, watching her walk towards the kitchen. But before she disappeared around the corner, she stopped. "James?" I looked up. "Yes?" She hesitated, as if weighing her words carefully. "Let's just be honest with each other from now on, okay?" I nodded, my throat dry. "All right." She gave me a small smile before disappearing into the kitchen. I sat there for a long time after she left, staring into nothingness, my mind replaying everything that had just happened. The words we haven't said, things we both felt but couldn't admit, and I know for sure that this is not over yet. The following days passed in a strange fog. I tried to pretend everything was normal, but it wasn't. I couldn't stop thinking about the way Linda looked at me, the hesitation in her voice, the unspoken thoughts that lingered between us. Every interaction felt heavier, like we were both tiptoeing around something we weren't ready to confront. Now that Dad is home, that should make things easier, but instead, it makes things harder. When the three of us sat at the dining table, I felt Linda's presence deeply. Every look, every word, every moment she laughed at something I said. My father, completely clueless, smiled and continued talking about his day, oblivious to the buzzing sound of electricity between his wife and son. One evening, after my dad had gone to bed, I was sitting in the living room scrolling through my phone when I heard noises in the hallway. I looked up just as Linda walked into the dim light of the room, wearing her usual satin robe. "Can't sleep?" she asked, her voice gentle. I shook my head. "No, friend?" She sighed, leaning against the door. "Not really, there's too much on my mind." I hesitated before asking, "About what?" Her lips pursed for a moment. Then she walked further into the room, sitting on the opposite end of the couch. "James, I don't want things to get weird between us, but I feel like we're both pretending we don't feel anything." My chest tightened. "Linda, no, let me say this." She ran her hand through her long hair, taking a slow breath before continuing. "I know what happened was an accident, and I know we should have moved on as if it never happened. But I can't stop thinking about it. Not just that moment, But you too. The air in the room became heavier, weighing me down, making it harder to breathe. I want to look away, but I can't. Linda, this is complicated. She gave a small, sad smile. I know, but ignoring it won't make it go away. The silence stretched between us, thick with the weight of the words we were afraid to say. Finally, she sighed and stood up. I should go to bed. Good night, James. She started to walk away, but before she could disappear down the hallway, I found myself speaking. Wait. She turned around, her face unpredictable. I don't know what this is, I admitted. I don't know what to do about it. But you're right. Ignoring it won't work. She walked slowly towards me, examining my face. So what should we do? I don't have the answer. Everything about this is wrong, but it doesn't feel that way right now. It feels inevitable, like something I was fighting against without even realizing it. Linda swallowed and nodded. Okay, then let's take a breath. One day at a time. I exhaled slowly. Yes, one day at a time. She hesitated another moment before turning and walking away, leaving me alone in the dark room, my heart pounding, my thoughts a jumbled mess of emotions I wasn't ready to name. I sat there for a long moment, staring at the empty doorway, knowing that from this moment on, nothing would be the same again. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I hadn't slept at all. My mind had been running in endless circles all night, replaying every word, every look. When I walked into the kitchen, I saw Linda already there, pouring herself a cup of coffee. She looked up at me, her expression unreadable, but there was something in her eyes that took my breath away. Good morning, she said, her voice quieter than usual. Good morning, I replied, my throat dry. We stood there in silence for a moment before she finally sighed. James, I meant what I said last night. I don't want things to be awkward, but I also don't want to lie to myself. Or to you. I put down the cup, my pulse quickened. What are you talking about? She hesitated, then looked straight into my eyes. I don't know, but maybe we should stop pretending this tension doesn't exist. My chest tightened. Linda, if we go down this path, there will be no turning back. Her fingers tightened around the coffee cup. I know, but the question is, do you want to? I cannot answer. Not yet, but as she stood there waiting, I realized the answer wasn't as simple as I'd hoped. The morning after our conversation, I felt like I was walking a tightrope. Every look, every breath feels measured and careful. Linda and I avoided unnecessary interactions, but the tension didn't go away. It just became something unspoken. Dad had an early meeting, leaving just the two of us at home. I was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee, fiddling with my phone when Linda walked in. She hesitated in the doorway, as if debating whether to say anything, then finally sighed and poured herself a drink. James, she began, her voice quiet, I think we need to find out what this means. I sighed and put the cup down. I don't know what to say. She looked at me then, her expression unreadable. Then don't say anything, just listen. I was mentally prepared. I have never been in a situation like this before, she admitted, and I never thought I would. But since that moment in the bathroom, I couldn't think about anything else, and not just because of what happened, but because of what it made me realize. I swallowed hard. And what is that? Her lips parted slightly, then closed again, as if she was searching for the right words. That there's something between us. There's something I don't understand, but there's something I can't ignore. My pulse thundered in my ears. Linda, this is crazy. She let out a light laugh. I know, trust me, I know. But that doesn't change the fact that it's true. I leaned back in my chair, rubbing my face with my hands. And what do we do about it? Then she looked at me, her blue eyes filled with something unreadable. I don't know, but I know I don't want to keep pretending it's not there. Silence stretched between us. The air was thick, filled with things we didn't say. Finally, she sighed. I should go. I have work to do. I nodded, watching her walk toward the door. But as soon as she reached for the key, she hesitated. James, if I invite you out for coffee later, just to talk, is that okay? I don't know why, but I hesitated. Maybe because I knew meeting outside the house would make it feel more real. Maybe because I'm not sure I'm ready. But when I looked into her eyes, I found myself nodding. Yes, I will. A small smile flashed across her lips. All right. Then she was gone, leaving me sitting there, my heart pounding in my chest, knowing that everything was about to change. Time passed slowly after Linda left. I tried to distract myself, but my mind kept returning to our conversation. The way she looks at me. Her voice was a little shaky, as if she was afraid to admit whatever was going on between us. When I got to the coffee shop, my hands were cold. I saw her sitting near the window, absent-mindedly stirring her drink. When she saw me, she smiled. Not a hesitant smile like this morning, but something softer, more familiar. "You're here," she said as I sat in the chair across from her. "Of course. I said I would." She nodded and took a sip of coffee. "I appreciate that." We sat in silence for a while before she spoke again. "I don't want to complicate your life, James, and I don't want to ruin mine, but I also don't want to pretend that I don't care about you." Her honesty left a lump in my throat. "Neither do I." Her eyes looked at me for a long moment. "So where does that leave us?" "I don't have the answer, but I know one thing. Whatever this is, it's not over." I tried to focus on anything but the weight of the conversation I just had with Linda. I told myself I needed space and time to think, but the truth was that she was taking up too much space in my mind. The days that followed were miserable. We kept our distance but couldn't completely ignore each other. Each look across the room was like a silent confession, each unspoken word another moment of increasing pressure between us. One evening, Dad announced that he was going on a business trip for the weekend. As soon as I said that, my stomach tightened. Linda and I both responded casually, pretending it was just another conversation. But the moment we were alone, the atmosphere changed. That Friday night, I paced my room, debating whether or not I should leave the house to avoid temptation. But before I could decide, there was a light knock on my door. I knew who it was before I even opened it. Linda stood there, dressed simply in a fitted sweater and jeans, her eyes looking at me. "Can we talk?" I hesitated, but then stepped aside, letting her in. She sat on the edge of my bed, her hands clasped in her lap. "James, I don't want to keep avoiding this." I leaned against the table, crossing my arms. "Neither do I, but I don't know what to do about it." She took a deep breath. "Me too, but I know that pretending like nothing happened won't work." I ran my hand through my hair and exhaled slowly. "This is dangerous." "Linda," she let out a short, breathy laugh. "You think I don't know that? I lie awake all night thinking about it. About you, about what this means. But the longer we pretend, the more unbearable it becomes." I swallowed hard, my pulse pounding in my ears. "So what should we do?" She looked up at me, her blue eyes filled with uncertainty. "Let's not lie to ourselves anymore. At least just for tonight." Her words hung between us, a challenge and an invitation at the same time. I stepped closer, breathing heavily. "What about tomorrow?" She shook her head. "I don't know, but I know that right now I don't want to run away from this anymore." I hesitated, my mind screaming at me to stop, think, leave. But when I looked at her, I realized I had already lost that battle. I slowly took her hand, feeling her fingers tremble against mine. "One night," she nodded. "One night. I don't know what will happen later, what consequences we will have to face. But in that moment, it no longer mattered. The line we had been dancing for so long had finally disappeared. The days that followed felt like a gradual unraveling process. I avoided looking at Linda, but that didn't stop me from feeling her presence in every room, in every lingering silence. Something changed between us that night, something neither of us could take back. I told myself it was a mistake, a moment of weakness, but every time I close my eyes, I can still feel the warmth of her hand in mine, the quiet desperation in her voice when she said she didn't want to run anymore. Dad returned from his trip late Sunday night, oblivious to the lingering tension in the house. He kissed Linda on the cheek, asked how my weekend was, and then continued on his business trip as if nothing had changed. But everything is there. I can't sit still. I need to get out of the house. I told my dad I was going out to clear my head, and he barely looked up from his laptop to acknowledge me. Linda said nothing, but as I passed her in the hallway, her fingers touched mine. Just for a second. I spent hours walking around the city, replaying everything in my head. I told myself I was making it bigger than it was, that I was being ridiculous. But I wasn't like that. I know that. And Linda knows that too. When I finally returned home, the house was quiet. Dad has gone to sleep. I hesitated at the bottom of the stairs, knowing that if I climbed up, I would have to face Linda again. I'm not sure if I'm ready. Before I could decide, she appeared at the top of the stairs, wearing a loose knitted sweater, her hair falling in soft curls around her shoulders. "Can't sleep?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I shook my head. "Are not." She hesitated, then nodded toward the back porch. "Come sit with me." I followed her outside, the fresh night air doing nothing to soothe the heat rising in my chest. We sat on the wooden steps. No one talked for a long time. Finally, she sighed. "I don't know what we're doing, James." I swallowed hard, staring out into the dark yard. "Me too." She turned to face me, her eyes searching for mine. "But you feel the same way, right?" I sighed, rubbing my palms against my jeans. "Yes." The admission was both a relief and a confession. Linda looked away, wrapping her arms around herself. "I can't keep pretending that night didn't happen." I nodded. "I can't either." She took a deep breath, then turned back to me. "So what should we do?" I hesitated. "We should stop, before this goes any further." A sad smile appeared on her lips. "Do you want to stop?" I don't answer, because we both know the truth. The silence stretched between us, thick and oppressive. Then suddenly she grabbed my hand, lacing her fingers with mine. It was so simple, so familiar, but it startled my whole body. "I don't know how to get out of this," she whispered. I squeezed her hand, my throat tight. "Then maybe we don't." Then she looked up at me, her expression torn between fear and something else, something I wasn't ready to name. I leaned forward, just a little, just enough to see if she would back away. She didn't, and in that moment I knew there was no going back. Although the moments in their home were changed forever, together James and Linda faced the truth about their feelings and understood that everything could be rebuilt with love and understanding. In the days that followed, they decided to talk frankly, not only to resolve their mixed emotions, but also to understand themselves and what they really needed in life. They realized that, although they cannot go back to the way they were before, their relationship can still be built on a foundation of respect and love, albeit in a different way. James began to feel more mature, not only in his work, but also in the way he viewed life and relationships. He realized that the most important thing is to understand himself and be able to live true to what he feels. Tense moments at home are no longer oppressive, but an opportunity for him to learn how to work with complex emotions and from there, find new ways to maintain a happy family. Linda, with her maturity and experience, helped James see things in a different light. Although she no longer holds the same role as before, she is still a confidant, someone who understands and shares his worries. Linda knows that, although the two cannot go back to the past, the affection and love in the family can be maintained if they are patient, understanding and appreciative of each other. A year later, when James started a new job and gradually matured in his career, he and Linda sat together on a summer afternoon, looking ahead, with smiles on their faces. "This life is magical, isn't it?" Linda said, her eyes shining with hope. James nodded, feeling peace in his heart. "That's right. Even though there were times when it seemed impossible to overcome, everything can change. The important thing is that we don't give up on each other." And so, their family continues together, no longer tense or strange, but with a bond stronger than ever. Love, understanding, and patience have helped them overcome their greatest challenges, and now every day is a precious gift. If you find this story interesting and want to see more touching, tense, but meaningful situations, don't forget to subscribe to our channel today. Leave a comment with your thoughts. Share this story with your friends and remember to like the video so we can stay motivated to bring you more great and meaningful content. Thank you for watching and supporting us.